The phone shatters the silence at 3:17 a.m. Not a ringtone, the old landline in the kitchen, the one that almost never rings anymore. The sound is sharp, insistent, cutting through the darkness of their Brussels apartment like a blade through fabric. Jean-Claude Van Damme sits up in bed. His wife Gladys doesn't stir beside him. She's learned to sleep through his late-night training sessions, through his packing, through the restlessness that comes with ambition that has nowhere to go. He swings his legs over the edge of the mattress, feet touching cold tile floor. March 1987. The apartment is small, modest, nothing like what he imagines his future will hold. In 2 months, he'll be on a movie set in Hong Kong, his first lead role. Bloodsport, everything he sacrificed for, everything he left his family to find. He walks barefoot across the kitchen. The moonlight through the window catches the edges of his body. Even in shadow, you can see the definition. Years of discipline carved into muscle and sinew. Hours of stretching until his body could do things that seemed impossible. Thousands of kicks thrown at mirrors, at heavy bags, at the empty air of his imagination where enemies existed only in his mind. He picks up the phone. His voice comes out rough, thick with sleep. The person on the other end breathes heavily, silent at first. Then a voice, male, older, speaking French with a Walloon accent, the accent of his childhood. Accent of streets he hasn't walked in 4 years. It's his father, Francois van Varenberg, the man who raised him with fists and silence. The man who told him dancing was for women, that martial arts was a waste, that he would never be anything, that he was too small, too stupid, too much of a dreamer. They haven't spoken since the fight, since Jean-Claude chose Hollywood over the family business, since his father told him to get out and never come back. His father's words are simple, clinical. 5 words that change everything. He needs Jean-Claude to come home. No apology, no explanation, no warmth, just those 5 words hanging in the space between them. Jean-Claude's jaw tightens. His hand grips the phone until his knuckles turn white. He asks why, though part of him already knows, already feels it in the pit of his stomach. It's Mitchell, his younger brother, the one who stayed, the one who took over the family flower shop, the one who did what was expected, the one their father actually loved. Mitchell is in the hospital. It's bad. The room tilts. Jean-Claude leans against the counter. His free hand finds the edge of the sink, gripping it like a lifeline. He asks what happened, but his father doesn't explain, just tells him to come home. Then the line goes dead. Jean-Claude stands there in the darkness, phone in hand, dial tone humming like a flat note that won't resolve. The refrigerator kicks on. The sound fills the kitchen. Normal life. Normal sounds, but nothing feels normal anymore. He hasn't been home in 4 years. Not since he chose his dreams over his blood. And now Mitchell is dying and his father is calling, and everything Jean-Claude has been running from is waiting for him across the ocean. 6 hours later, Brussels Airport. The arrival's terminal smells like stale coffee and diesel fuel and too many people compressed into too small a space. Jean-Claude walks through customs with a single duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Black jeans, white t-shirt, leather jacket. He looks like an American now. Moves like one too. The confidence of someone who has been chosen, who has a movie deal, who is going to be a star. But underneath that confidence, something else churns, something that feels like dread. The taxi ride to St. Luke Hospital passes in a blur. The driver tries to make conversation, asking if he's visiting someone. Jean-Claude doesn't answer, just stares out the window at a city that used to be home and now feels like a museum of his past. Buildings he recognizes but doesn't remember. Streets that should be familiar but feel foreign. He left this place behind, left it deliberately, and now it's pulling him back like gravity he thought he'd escaped. The hospital is old, stone walls that have seen generations of suffering, high ceilings that make footsteps echo. The smell of disinfectant trying desperately to cover the smell of sickness and death and fear. A nun walks past carrying flowers. Her shoes squeak on the linoleum. Jean-Claude finds the room number, 3rd floor. Room 314. He stands outside the door. His hand touches the handle but doesn't turn it. He can hear voices inside, his father's voice, his mother's, soft, worried. The kind of worried that comes when you're watching someone you love slip away and there's nothing you can do but wait. Jean-Claude hasn't prepared for this, hasn't rehearsed what to say. In Hollywood, everything is rehearsed. Every line, every movement, every emotion calculated for maximum impact. But this is real. This is family. This is blood. And blood doesn't follow a script. Pushes the door open. The room is small. One window, pale green walls that look sickly in the fluorescent light, a single bed. Mitchell lies there and Jean-Claude almost doesn't recognize him. The brother he remembers was vibrant, full of life, always laughing. This person in the bed is a ghost, pale, thin, tubes running from his arms like vines trying to keep a dying plant alive. An oxygen mask covers his face. His chest rises and falls in shallow, struggling breaths. His mother sees him first. "Ileana," she gasps, her hand flying to her mouth. She stands quickly, moving toward him with her arms open. She looks smaller than he remembers, frailer, like the weight of watching her son die has physically diminished her. She hugs Jean-Claude and he can feel how much she's shrinking into herself. She smells like lavender and grief. His father doesn't move. Francois sits in a chair beside the bed, staring at Mitchell. He doesn't stand when Jean-Claude enters, doesn't look up. Just continues his vigil over the son who stayed, the son who is dying. Jean-Claude asks what happened, his voice barely above a whisper. His mother pulls back from the embrace, tears streaming down her face. She tells him it's leukemia. They found it 6 months ago. 6 months. His brother has been dying for 6 months and no one told him. Mitchell didn't want them to, didn't want to burden Jean-Claude with his dying while Jean-Claude was chasing his dreams. Jean-Claude feels something crack inside his chest. He asks why they kept it from him, though he already knows the answer. His father finally looks up. Those eyes, red-rimmed, exhausted, but there's something else in them, something Jean-Claude recognizes because he's seen it his entire life. Blame. His father's words are flat, empty, drained of everything except accusation. He says Jean-Claude left, chose his dreams over his family, that when they needed him, he was in America playing pretend. The words land like physical blows. Jean-Claude feels them in his chest, in his throat, cutting off his air. He says he didn't know, but the defense sounds hollow even to his own ears. His father responds with brutal simplicity. Jean-Claude didn't ask, didn't call, didn't care enough to check in. The silence that follows is suffocating. The machines beep their steady rhythm. Mitchell's chest continues its shallow rise and fall, fighting, always fighting. Jean-Claude moves closer to the bed. He looks at his brother, really looks at him. This is not the Mitchell he remembers, not the boy who followed him around, who wanted to learn karate, who believed his big brother was going to be famous someday. This is a shell, a body losing a war it never asked to fight. He asks how long Mitchell has. His mother sobs, unable to answer. His father stands, and when he speaks, his voice carries the weight of inevitability. Days, maybe a week. Jean-Claude's legs nearly give out. He sits heavily in an empty chair, reaching for Mitchell's hand. It's cold, lifeless, like touching marble. He leans forward, his forehead nearly touching their joined hands. He whispers an apology that feels inadequate. Sorry for not knowing. Sorry for not being here. Sorry for choosing Hollywood over family. His father's voice cuts through the room like a knife. He says sorry doesn't bring back 4 years, doesn't erase the absence, doesn't change the fact that Mitchell is dying and Jean-Claude missed it all. Jean-Claude looks up, meeting his father's gaze. He asks what Francois wants from him, though he already knows. His father wants him to stay, to be here when Mitchell dies, to prove that family means something, that blood means something, that all the talk about dreams and ambition was just talk. Jean-Claude hears himself saying the words before he can stop them. He has to go back. He has a movie. He has a contract. The words sound obscene in this room, grotesque, like talking about stock prices at a funeral. His father's face hardens into something carved from stone. Of course, Hollywood, always Hollywood. He asks Jean-Claude a question that will haunt him for the rest of his life. When he's famous, when he's on magazine covers, when the whole world knows his name, will it be worth it? Will it be worth missing his brother's last days? Jean-Claude has no answer. His father walks to the door, announcing he's going to get coffee. When he comes back, Jean-Claude better have decided what matters more, his brother or his career. The door closes behind him. The silence returns, heavier than before. Jean-Claude sits there, holding Mitchell's cold hand, listening to his mother cry quietly in the corner. For the first time since he left Belgium, since he chased his dream across the ocean, since he decided he would be somebody no matter what it cost, Jean-Claude Van Damme doesn't know what to do. The machines beep. Mitchell breathes. The world outside continues, indifferent to the small tragedy unfolding in room 314. Jean-Claude thinks about Hong Kong, about Bloodsport, about the contract he signed, about the directors waiting for him, about the chance he fought for, the chance he sacrificed everything to get. And then he thinks about Mitchell, about the brother who stayed behind, who took care of their parents, who ran the flower shop, who lived the safe life, the life their father wanted. And now that brother is dying and Jean-Claude wasn't here for any of it, but then something happens that changes everything. Mitchell's hand moves just slightly, a twitch, a squeeze, weak but deliberate. Jean-Claude's breath catches in his throat. He leans closer, watching his brother's face. Mitchell's eyes flutter open, slowly, painfully. Each movement costs him something. He looks at Jean-Claude. Recognition flickers in those dying eyes. Mitchell's lips move. His voice is barely a whisper, broken and weak, forced through a throat that's already halfway to silence. He tells Jean-Claude not to stay. The words come out fragmented, gasping, each one an effort. Don't give up Hollywood, don't give up the dream. Jean-Claude feels like he's been punched. He starts to protest, but Mitchell's hand squeezes tighter, stronger than it should be, stronger than death should allow. Mitchell tells him to go, to live for both of them. Jean-Claude breaks. The sobs come from somewhere deep, somewhere he's kept locked since childhood, since his father taught him that emotions were weakness, since he learned that to survive in this world you have to be stone, unbreakable, unyielding. But here in this moment, holding his dying brother's hand, Jean-Claude Van Damme is not stone. He is flesh and blood and breaking apart. Mitchell manages a smile, just barely. A ghost of the smile Jean-Claude remembers from childhood, from before life got complicated, from before dreams and reality became enemies. He asks Jean-Claude to promise to go back, promise to make the movie, promise to become the star they both know he can be. Through his tears, Jean-Claude promises. The word feels like both a liberation and a condemnation. Mitchell's smile widens just slightly. He tells Jean-Claude to make them remember the name Van Damme, to make it mean something, to prove that their family can be more than a flower shop in Brussels. Then his hand goes slack. His eyes close. The machines continue their rhythm, but something has been said that cannot be unsaid. A permission granted, a burden shared. Jean-Claude's mother moves closer, her hand touching his shoulder. She tells him Mitchell has been holding on, waiting. 3 days ago, Mitchell told her that when Jean-Claude comes home, tell him not to stay, tell him to go back to Hollywood, tell him to be great. When Francois returns, coffee in hand, he sees Jean-Claude's face. The tears, the decision already made. He doesn't ask, just states it as fact. Jean-Claude is leaving. Jean-Claude stands, turning to face his father. He explains that Mitchell wants him to go, that his brother asked him to continue, that this is what Mitchell wants. His father's face flushes with anger and grief. He says Mitchell is dying, that he doesn't know what he wants, but Jean-Claude stands his ground. He says Mitchell knows exactly what he wants Jean-Claude to live the life he can't. Wants someone to prove that dreams aren't just for stupid people, that sacrifices can mean something. Francois's face changes, the anger cracks. He asks if that's what Jean-Claude thinks he believes, that dreams are for stupid people. And Jean-Claude, for the first time in 4 years, tells his father the truth, that it's what Francois told him, every day, for years, that martial arts was pointless, that Hollywood was a fantasy, that Jean-Claude was wasting his time, that he called him a dreamer like it was a curse word. Francois's voice cracks when he responds. He says he didn't want Jean-Claude to fail, didn't want him to end up broken and disappointed like everyone else who chases impossible things. The truth spills out. Francois's own father chased dreams and lost everything. The family lost everything. He swore his sons would have stable lives, safe lives, lives that didn't end in regret. Jean-Claude's response is quiet but firm. That's not life. That's survival. And Mitchell understands the difference. He's dying, and he understands it better than Francois ever did. The silence that follows is different, softer. Something has shifted in the room, in the space between father and son. Jean-Claude kneels beside his father's chair, eye level, man to man. He tells Francois he's going back to America, he's making this movie, he's going to be famous. Not because he doesn't love Mitchell, but because he does, because Mitchell asked him to, because someone has to prove that the Van Damme name can mean something beyond Brussels. Francois looks at his son, really looks at him, and in his father's eyes Jean-Claude sees something he's never seen before, respect, reluctant, painful, but real. Francois asks if Jean-Claude will remember them when he's famous, when he's on magazine covers, when the world knows his name. Jean-Claude promises he will, every single day. Francois nods once. It's not forgiveness, not quite, but it's a beginning, a crack in the wall between them. Jean-Claude stays 3 more days. He sits beside Mitchell's bed for hours. He talks about Hollywood, about training, about Bloodsport, about the split he's going to do between 2 trucks someday, about how he's going to make people remember the name Van Damme. Mitchell doesn't speak much, but he listens. Jean-Claude can tell by the way his breathing changes, the way his hand squeezes occasionally, the way his lips sometimes curl into that ghost smile. On the 4th day, Mitchell dies, peacefully. His mother holding one hand, Jean-Claude holding the other. His father standing at the foot of the bed, all of them together, all of them broken. The machines flatline, the sound is terrible, final, the sound of a life ending. The funeral is small, family, close friends. The flower shop closes for 3 days, black wreaths hang on the door. The whole neighborhood comes to pay respects. Mitchell was liked, loved. The son who stayed, the son who served. Jean-Claude stands at the grave as they lower his brother into the ground. His father stands beside him, they don't speak. Some things don't require words. When it's over, when the coffin is covered, when the last prayer is said, Francois turns to Jean-Claude. He tells his son to go make his movie. Jean-Claude starts to speak, but Francois cuts him off. He says Mitchell was right. Jean-Claude has to live for both of them now. He hugs his son. It's awkward, stiff. They're not used to this kind of physical affection, but it's real. Jean-Claude promises to make them proud. His father tells him he already has. 2 months later, Hong Kong, the set of Bloodsport. Jean-Claude Van Damme stands in front of a camera for the first time as a leading man. The lights are hot. The crew watches, the director calls action. Jean-Claude moves, a spinning kick, perfect form, perfect execution. The camera captures it. The crew applauds. The director yells cut and says it was perfect. But Jean-Claude doesn't hear them, he's somewhere else, in a hospital room, holding his brother's hand. Hearing Mitchell's voice telling him to make them remember. And he did. Bloodsport became a phenomenon. Jean-Claude Van Damme became a star. The name Van Damme became legend. But every interview, every magazine cover, every premiere, Jean-Claude remembers. Remembers that phone call at 3 a.m. Remembers his brother's last words. Remembers the choice he almost didn't make, remembers the promise. Years later, at his father's funeral, Jean-Claude will stand between 2 graves, Mitchell's and Francois'. The flower shop long closed, the neighborhood changed, but the graves remain. He'll place flowers on both, his hands trembling, the same hands that broke boards and won championships and signed autographs. He'll whisper to them that he kept his promise, that the whole world knows their name, that Mitchell's death meant something, that Francois' sacrifice meant something, that the phone call at 3 a.m. changed everything, because some choices echo forever, some promises haunt you until you die. And some people give you permission to chase your dreams by dying before they can see them come true. That's the weight Jean-Claude Van Damme carries. That's the price of fame. That's what 3 a.m. phone calls teach you. That sometimes the people who love you most will ask you to leave them, to choose yourself, to live. And living with that choice is harder than dying ever was. Mitchell van Varenberg died March 1987, age 24. He never saw his brother become famous, but he knew. Somehow he knew.